Hi, good evening, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Girl Talk. We never get it right. We need to practice that.
Yeah.
I hope you guys are all having a phenomenal week. We have another awesome episode for you tonight. Tonight is talking all about grief and loss and what that looks like. And I think that we can all agree that in this season of COVID, there has been a tremendous amount of loss. This is something that we are not prepared for. I don't think anyone could have foreseen this season coming. You don't need to look anywhere else but the news to see the millions of people that have lost loved ones all around the world in this season. And tonight we really want to dive into what that looks like, because, and that, again, we tackle the issues that people don't necessarily want to talk about, but grief is something that we all experience at some point in our lives. So tonight we are going to jump into that.
Yeah, so any of you that have been following the news recently, you'll know that Meghan Markle sat down and done a kind of tell-all interview with Oprah Winfrey. Some people are divided. Some people feel like that interview should have taken place. Some people feel like it should have been done behind closed doors and that you shouldn't air your dirty laundry. Regardless of what your position is on the whole Meghan Markle situation, I think that what we do have to understand and acknowledge is that she spoke her truth. Whether that truth resonates with everybody or not, she spoke her truth. And in her tell-all interview with Oprah Winfrey, she spoke a lot about mental health. But prior to that interview, she actually raised a really important topic and experience, a very personal experience that she had with miscarrying her second child. And I just want to read something to you. It says that 1 in 4 pregnancies ends in miscarriage, with 85% of miscarriages happening in the first trimester, weeks 1 to 12. The rate is 1 in 5 in other developed countries. The Duchess wrote, "In the pain of our loss, my husband and I discovered that in a room of 100 women, 10 to 20 of them will have suffered from miscarriage. Yet, despite the staggering commonality of this pain, the conversation remains taboo, riddled with unwarranted shame and perpetuating a cycle of solitary mourning. So why has the number of people decided to verbally attack Meghan for sharing such a heartbreaking and personal experience? Within minutes of Meghan's piece being published, the malice started to roll in, from laughing reactions on Facebook to comments that don't deserve a second mention." And I think that for us, the passion of Girl Talk, where Girl Talk was really birthed from, is starting those conversations. And because a conversation is uncomfortable, it doesn't mean that our response then should be to push it away. They say that one of the greatest grief, one of the greatest pains that anyone could ever experience is the loss of a child. And I think that when someone speaks their truth in this manner, it's really important, like the Duchess said, that we learn to be kind. And so we're going to be really tearing that subject apart a little bit today. And we're going to be addressing this issue. Why is it taboo? Why do we not talk about it? Why is miscarriage something that women feel like they have to process and do by themselves? Why is there a solidarity to it when we have a sisterhood? So we're going to be tearing that apart a little bit today.
And you know, with the interview with Meghan Markle, it can push women back into under the shell, with especially with a subject like this. And we live in a society today that is pretty bullying. pretty cruel, and we don't want to go back in time where we don't feel we can talk about it. So we're actually going in the opposite direction, and we want to create a platform that you are comfortable to come out and talk about it without the fear of being judged, without the fear of being criticized. And I believe everybody has the right to tell their own story. And I think it was incredibly brave of Meghan Markle to share such a personal and intimate details. And tonight we have in the studio with us an incredibly brave young lady that we have walked through her journey with her, pretty much a lot of her journey. We have got Stephanie in the studio with us today. Thank you for coming in. Thank you for being brave. And I pray that you all see this in the context of what we're trying to do, which is always to help people. It's not a platform to judge, criticize, or condemn. But Stephanie's bravely come on here to share about her journey. She's had 11 pregnancies, 8 of which were miscarriages. So we want to be able to turn over that story, and I believe it's going to minister to some of you. I think even in this space here, amongst us, 3 of us in this room have had miscarriages. It's that common, and so I know there must be a ton of you that have been through this journey and probably processing that still. So,
and just a trigger warning, this may trigger some emotions, some feelings, but we encourage you, if you can, stay on, journey with us. I feel like there will be a lot that you can learn and grab from Stephanie. So
and bring healing.
So you have 3 beautiful babies.
Yes, you
do you want to let us know their names?
Yeah, so I have Naomi Grace, and I have Ariella, and I also have Jaira, baby Jaira. So I just wanted to encourage a lot of the women that are watching at the moment, just to say that there is life beyond that loss. And I think that's really one of the biggest purposes of today. So that's the part is, yes, there's a lot of tragedy and a lot of sadness that we all share, and that's part of our solidarity, isn't it? But also as well, there's strength actually in acknowledging and taking something from the dark and bringing it into the light, and saying, so it doesn't rule or start to influence how we kind of live out our lives. So
let's go to the. Are you ready? Welcome to Girl Talk. We just go straight in. Don't worry. So I know it's been a while now, but let's go back to your first pregnancy. How old were you? Where were you? What headspace were you in? What do you remember?
So going right back, so first pregnancy took place prior to me having a relationship with Jesus. So at that time, I was very much living my own life, doing the things I felt I needed to do, felt that I was in control of my life, found myself falling pregnant because I wasn't living a particular type of lifestyle in waiting for that kind of intimacy. With a partner, found I was pregnant, and then from that point on, I didn't pursue to keep the pregnancy. I actually terminated that first pregnancy, and was a very, very difficult and a very dark time for myself.
How old were you?
So I was, at that time, I believe I was 21, because I got saved when I was 22, so I was 21, and I literally had just started my first year of uni, and I was in a relationship that it wasn't deemed suitable to have that baby, and through a different sort of series of events, not to go into tonight because it take a bit longer, but ended up being encouraged to go and have a termination.
So was that something you felt like you wanted to do, or is it something you felt like you had to do? Because I feel like a lot of women, when faced with that, they feel like that is the only option because that's what's presented to them. How did you feel?
I definitely felt that I was guided. I probably would say to the point when I knew I wasn't going to be able to keep that baby, I kind of went very numb. So I kind of was sort of just going with the flow. So I wouldn't necessarily say that I was very much like, okay, I was forced into it and taken to the doctor's office, but I was just kind of very numb and just flowing with. Because really, I think I was under the understanding that baby didn't mean anything. It was just, at that point, it was just a ball of cells. Didn't really have a life, didn't really have, I didn't have the knowledge that I have now in regards to a baby having a spirit. I didn't have any of that. So, I just didn't really think it was going to impact me as much as it did.
And this is a big misconception, right, with abortion, because I think that obviously it's a little bit different, obviously, when you're carrying a baby and you miscarry, because it's not your choice, but whereas with an abortion, you're choosing to make that choice. Just talk us through a little bit. What does it look like in terms of the grieving process of an abortion? Because I'm sure it must differ to obviously the loss of through miscarrying.
Definitely. There's a completely different, I think, in the sense that, and that possibly what a lot of women may be feeling is that very much that we just don't go there. I just don't go there, and I kind of keep calm and carry on, and I get on with my life because I've made that choice. So therefore, you don't really revisit it. It's kind of buried. It's by your decision, and you kind of live by that. Whereas with miscarriage, it's very much like you are, to some degree, given the space to actually mourn. You're given that space, but I think with abortion, you're not really. I was even reading actually an article
because it's your fault. Really.
I was reading actually, there's a petition, a current petition at the moment actually, and it was saying that women should be acknowledged for their actual grief in abortion, and that people should be able to tell their stories.
I think as well, from speaking to a psychologist before, they said, one of the things they don't tell you with an abortion is that your body is actually preparing itself to nurture a baby, and usually when women have had an abortion, the body yearns to get pregnant, and in that research they said more often than not a woman does go and get pregnant again after, because there is that something that's been foreignly removed, not natural process, has been foreignly removed. So they oftentimes people go back into a pregnancy from that.
And I think it's that kind of place of, what does that look like to kind of want to conceive from that mindset. And I think that's the place where it's so important women do speak up about it, they do seek help, and they do get that healing and that support, and be encouraged in that. Choices are choices, and you can move forward from those things, but it's about actually taking it and owning it, and not letting it kind of, because you don't want to be the things of going full pregnant again, and you've not really dealt with that. And that's one of the things that's quite consistent as well with miscarriage, isn't it? Is that fact when you have a miscarriage, and then literally that we were discussing it earlier, and it's like then you begin to chart, you chart, and you kind of want to find out when your ovulation dates and get pregnant as soon as possible. And actually you need to sometimes stop and heal. You need to release that, and release that child, and then you're more than able to then move on and actually enjoy that pregnancy that you're going to have, and not it be framed.
Okay, so for those, obviously we have viewers that may have considered an abortion or maybe considering an abortion. I think a lot of the times we think of it as a kind of a short-term measure, like it's a instant solution to what we consider a lifelong burden or responsibility. But obviously I think there's that kind of stigma that it's instant, and it's but I know when we spoke to you earlier that it doesn't just end there, it doesn't just go away. How would you say that compares the responsibility of obviously having a child to the responsibility of obviously carrying this burden? Because I'm sure with that burden it comes regret, shame, there's lots of different things that's tied into that. What would you say to those people?
Well, from in my story, mine led to a lot of depression. My mental health was significantly affected, and I didn't address it, so I was making lots of really poor choices post having the abortion, and I think you never, we're sitting here on this couch, this is nearly how many years, 19 years later, talking about that baby, and I'm very grateful to know that baby still has a life because of the knowledge that I have now. But I would never forget that, and I don't think I can't imagine there is any woman out there that forgets it. I can't. I just.
You never do.
I don't know. You'd have to be so cold, and that's not living life. That's existing. You'd have
and
to.
You said you were quite surprised at the physical toll it took on your body after the abortion. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
So that was that was difficult, because like I said, I was in a very dark place and in a lot of depression, and I was making those really poor choices. So alongside that, I didn't have the knowledge to let my body heal. I didn't have, I was just doing what you're doing. But actually, you have to think to yourself, you know, you've gone in and interfered and removed that baby. Actually, your body's just gone straight into shutdown mode.
Yeah.
You know, you're given, you know, on occasion, obviously depending on when you terminate, you would be given like medication to stop certain parts of that pregnancy, you know, the effects of it progressing. All of that takes a massive toll on your body. And actually, I had little or no actual physical support or counts, you know, in that factor to say, okay, you know what, you're gonna need to rest for this amount of time. You're gonna need to. I didn't have any of that.
It's strange. It's such a physical thing to heal from, and the way it's treated medically, it's like you should get over it. It's done. Move on. But even if you cut yourself physically, that takes time to heal. I know when I injured my hand, it was like I was going to take you 3 months to heal. So really, it was something that's tied in not only physically, surgery's been done, but emotionally. You're talking a year at least.
And it's just buried. It's just pushed down, just pushed down and pushed down and pushed down, and you know, and that's why we just really encourage, you know, anyone that thinks that, you know what, maybe this is something that affects me, or it does, I am struggling with that, to really reach out. You know, first step is really just to have a conversation with somebody, someone you trust. You know, that's the first place, and then obviously, you know, then take it from there and take those steps. But I think you can afford yourself actually that grace to say, you know what, I am entitled to have that space of healing. I am entitled to, you know, look at what those effects were on my physical body, my mental health, you know, and the relationships that you could have been in, because sometimes, you know, that can be a big effect, isn't it, of relationship breakdown when you're having a, you know, you find that you're pregnant, they don't want it. You know, that's, you know, one of those things. So it's really important you really do just speak to someone. Just you know, there's, as they say, you know, in the community, there's no shade.
Well, so often as women, we do this thing where we deal with it on our own, because we sometimes don't want to talk to a husband because we feel they're not going to understand. So we have our moments where we go and have our little cry in our bedroom, because I lost between Michelle and Sarah, I lost one, and then between Sarah and Danny, I had an ectopic. And up until I got saved, I just got saved when I had the ectopic. But I found from the very first one I lost, there was a grieving, and I would have moments of crying, going by myself, crying, not knowing what was going on, how to process it. And it wasn't until I got saved, when God began to speak to me, that I actually began to experience healing. And there's probably a lot of women that's gone through this, and you have those secret moments where you go aside, because really your spouse doesn't understand. It's like, why are you still crying? You know, why haven't you got over this by now?
Well, I think, with you weren't even in a relationship, right? This was what ended your relationship. So you were very much probably processing this
by
alone.
yourself.
I don't even think I even let myself even go there, if I'm honest. Like I said, you know, before, like it was just that time I just went off the rails, because I didn't have any, like.
But that was your process.
I didn't have any, like, kind of any. All I knew what to do was actually just to be dysfunctional. That's all I knew what to do. I knew, you know what, if I've already done it, I've already done something that I thought I would never ever do, and now, you know, I'm now at that place where, you know, this person's not here anymore. I don't know if that's even going to relive that relationship. You know, I've gone and made all of these changes, and now I need to go back into university, you know, and start this, you know, and I think I started the course. I was going back into a new year and kind of get on with it, you know, and it even affected my uni. Like you just don't function properly. It's, you know. But
So then you found Christ. You got saved.
Thank
God for
you,
Jesus.
Hallelujah.
And you got pregnant again, right?
So got saved. A couple of years into that, well, actually it wasn't a couple of years. Actually, it was about 5 years later. I got married. Very happy woman. Met a Christian man. Very excited, you know. And then fell pregnant. So at this time we'd done our civil. So we had done the paper, the legal part of the wedding. and I had found out at that time I was pregnant, and from that point on, wanted to see whether or not the pregnancy was going to progress, but things just didn't feel right. They just weren't right. Had a lot of the symptoms, but just things weren't right. So I went to go and have a scan, and what they had discovered was that it was a potential ectopic pregnancy. And from there, I had to endure and go through. There's a series of when you have, as ladies that have experienced that, you understand, you have to have the blood test to check your hormone levels are doubling to show that the pregnancy is increasing. And we had to go through that, and that was just really, really difficult because we weren't really as fixed as husband and wife. It wasn't really fixed in, and we were still trying to plan for the white wedding, and we were still trying to do all of that kind of stuff. So, as it transpired, I ended up having to go and have a treatment done, a chemical treatment to get rid of the pregnancy because they couldn't locate it in the right place, and they felt that possibly it could be located, I think it was towards my left ovary. So I went into hospital and I had that done, and came out, and then I had been very unwell after that. I remember I had quite a few sort of just like fainting fits as well after that, so that was really, really difficult. And then further from that, then fell pregnant again. This time
pregnancy number 3.
Yeah.
Yep.
So then,
those of you that have just tuned in, Steph has actually been pregnant 11 times, which is incredible.
Pretty cool woman.
Yeah. Very cool. Amen.
Strong husband.
Yeah, so you're on your 3rd pregnancy now. So by this point, you've had one that you've actually chosen to not keep. Then you've had one that you didn't have a choice. So now you're on your 3rd pregnancy, and what happens with the 3rd one?
The 3rd one. So what I'll do is I'll run through the pregnancies that had different experiences as opposed to the lower losses. With that pregnancy, I carried all the way through, very excited, very, very excited about this pregnancy. I was over the moon about it. I was even saying earlier, I got to 2 months. One of my memories about it is I got to 2 months and I'd be sticking my tummy out so that everyone could kind of see I had no bump. It was I had no bump at all. Pregnancy progressed, things just, continued on, and unfortunately we got to 25 weeks exactly and my waters went. At this time I wasn't very much aware of having a womb infection, having waters infections and things like that. I think that there's a medical term that where you have infections in the water that can affect baby. There's things such as group B strep as well that can affect the baby. And anyway, my waters went and I had to deliver baby because by the time we'd gone for the scan, baby had died in the womb. So I had to go through the labour of delivering the baby, and that was just horrifying. It was one of the most difficult, just because I think there was just so much hope associated to that child. There'd been losses, there'd been sadness. It felt a bit like we were coming to the culmination of things, and to lose that baby. And I never even forget the clothes that I went into the hospital I was wearing. I left the hospital in those clothes, and they were for maternity. And it's like you're walking through, and we've discussed it as well, when you're in this, they put you in the room. There's a particular room that they take if you've lost a baby. They put you in that room, and you come out of the room, and it's like you can hear the other maternity wards. You can hear, you go downstairs, you see people with their car seats and everything like that, and you're walking out. It was just
heartbreaking, right?
It was, it was. So I had to have lots and lots of sort of physical healing after that. Had a lot of very strange symptoms where the body was contracting back. And trying to make sense of everything.
And I think that's something that people don't realise, that obviously when you are pregnant, there are hormones that are in your body that only comes through pregnancy. And I think people almost automatically think, once it's out, that's it.
No, not at all.
Hormones stay in a woman's body for a really long time, and I think that's the part that people just almost they expect women to be this superwoman after they've had a baby, or if you've had a loss. Those hormones are still there whether you're you know, 10 weeks pregnant or full term, like those hormones are still in your body. And I think people kind of discard that, and they don't really think about the after implications of that.
Well, the body goes into this whole process of preparing itself to actually nurture, preparing to breastfeed, and to suddenly, the body doesn't just get over it just because the baby's no longer there. It's now got to reset itself, and that takes time because everyone else moves on. Okay, and they try and encourage you maybe to, you know, to move on, but as much as you may want to mentally, you cannot speed the process up.
And
That you shouldn't. Medically, your body's going to take its time to fix itself back.
So you're now on, this is pregnancy number 4. So was there any moments, because obviously we started with the first pregnancy which you chose to get rid of, which I think one of the most powerful things that Stacey said when she was on here the other day was, you know, we have to learn to forgive ourselves for what we didn't know. So you made a decision as a 19-year-old girl based on the information that was presented to you, naively, you know, whatever. Were there, by the third miscarriage, fourth pregnancy, did you have that moment of guilt, or did I put these wheels in motion? Was I being punished? Like
100%, Sarah. Like literally, it was like on every loss, you know, the Bible says that the enemy comes to steal, kill, and destroy, and he will utilize, you know, a weak mind. And that's really what it is when we don't process and we don't take that ownership of things. Your mind's weak. And definitely, I felt that, you know, was God punishing me because I'd broken this law, you know, in regards to taking that life, you know, that I am a murderer, and you had all of these kind of thoughts that, you know, well, this is recompense. Actually, this would satisfy, or maybe maybe the other ones didn't satisfy, or this will satisfy, or actually maybe you're not meant to have a baby, or actually maybe you're not actually meant to actually carry because maybe something could happen from the abortion. Maybe there was something that they left in there, or they took out, or it wasn't. And you've got all of these questions you have to kind of process and focus.
So how did you reconcile that? Did you reconcile that? How did you come to terms with that? Because was it later on down the line, or did you just have a moment with God where it was just or how did you deal with that? Because that would have been heavy.
So I think with that loss, that stillbirth at 25 weeks, that's where I really felt that God, and I didn't understand it at the time, but God really taught me actually about loss. He really, it was like, you know, I thought I was just sitting there doing a Bible study, pouring out my heart before God, but actually God was actually putting in, it felt like they were like rods of foundation. Actually, this is my word and this is my truth, and anything else contrary to that is a lie. So when I realised that actually the enemy comes to steal, kill, and destroy, God is not the author of confusion, so he's not going to cause and say that, well, I want to give you the desire to be a mother, and then remove it. God wouldn't do that. He doesn't. He's not sadistic like that. And you know, and I always think to myself as well, like, you know, it says that there's no more condemnation in Christ. You know, and I think it's that place where it is condemnation. It is your past. And he says that if any man be in Christ, he is a new creature. And sometimes it's those truths that sometimes we kind of say in a bit of Christianese, don't we? We're kind of like, yes, you know, I'm a new creature in Christ, and, you know, all things have passed away, all things become new. But actually, you know, the fact that God redeemed me when I felt that I'd done the worst thing ever, and he placed me and seated me in heavenly places alongside him, he made me a queen and a princess.
What would you say to women that may be struggling with that thought? Because
forgiving themselves.
I think there's, you know, there is that place where people think, you know, because I sowed that seed, is this going to be my harvest?
And it doesn't necessarily need to be stemmed from abortion. It could be from different things in their life, in their past, that they maybe feel carry guilt about.
And I think it's a place of unworthiness, and I think that fits for all places. So whether or not that's abuse, whether or not that is by your own choice, by your own behaviours, you know, irresponsible behaviours, but actually it's that place of not feeling worthy. And when I realised and I understood, actually, you know, the fact that God had taken me and he had washed me and he had cleansed me and he called me his own. When I realised that, I was like, you know what, devil, it's all right. You can take that one.
Yeah.
Yes, fair enough. I might settle with it for like 24 hours,
Yeah.
you know, having to, you know, battle it and kind of put it down. But, you know, I was like, no, when I realised that, and I think it's that for every woman out there, that it is that place where you have to understand how worthy you are. Before anybody gives you any validation, God gives you that validation. He gives it to you. He wants you to know that you are his queen, his princess, the apple of his eye, that he's inscribed you in the palm of his hands, you know, and it's that knowledge and that truth that helps you to kind of to overcome.
So we're on pregnancy number 4.
Yes.
By now you're probably feeling it. You have a name for that baby. His name was Joshua.
Yeah.
So you've lost Joshua. You're probably incredibly broken by this stage. Probably thinking, do you know what? Were you thinking, do you know what? We're good for now. Let's just do us. Or are you still like ovulation charts? Let's get to this.
I love the scripture you shared, actually.
What with the
barren womb?
Yeah, a barren woman's never. Yeah, there's a scripture. It says that there's 3 things. I can't remember the other one, but I think it's the 2 of them that I always remember is a barren woman and empty grave, that will never be satisfied. And so at that time, I became quite after Joshua. God gave me that understanding, because prior to that, I'd become quite embittered about the loss. So that was something that was quite significant.
So you were mad at God, or you were mad at the world, or you were mad at your
Just
husband,
angry.
or just angry at everybody?
I was just angry. I was, you know, I was one of those people that was, you know, what they call it, passive aggressive. So it was like, you know, and it was, and I say this to say, hopefully this will touch somebody to understand. But I remember there was a time where there was a baby shower. And I verbally had said, why am I going to a baby shower? You know, when I've just had my loss, you know, and that was the position and the mindset.
But I think that that's the part that people fail to realise, that is a process of grief. That there is the kind of sadness, there's the anger, there's the why, questioning why, and you know, these are all the different stages of grief. And I think it's important that we don't deny ourselves of those stages. And I think it's very important that we experience and feel those stages, because all of those things add up to us actually being able to be free from that loss. And I think that there's a difference between experiencing it and then staying in it. I know when I had our miscarriage, that was, I had to be very mindful that okay, I need to grieve, but I can't afford to squat in any of these stages of grief, because I recognise that you can end up taking a downward spiral. You know, if you stay in the sadness too long, that opens the door to depression. And I think that it's very important, I think, in grief, that we understand that there are stages to grief, but it's important that we transition through those stages.
I think as well, I think what would be really helpful is for a lot of people as well, you know, we say that 1 in every 4 women, I think it's actually probably a bit more, because that's what's been recorded, but I think it's say 1 in every 4 women have experienced a miscarriage. I think that as a sisterhood, I think that it's also one of those topics that we don't talk about. So when we see someone going through this, I think it's a very hard thing to navigate. And I know even watching my sister go through this, obviously it was, you know, it's like with some of yours, it was, you know, she was quite far gone, and you know, you could see and everything. It's finding the balance of, you know, do I show acknowledge this baby? Does this baby, do you want this baby to be acknowledged? You know, and so I think some people just decide, you know what, let me just leave it, because I don't want to, you know, dredge up any unnecessary pain. And I know a lot of women have said, no, but I want this baby to be acknowledged. Can we just talk a little bit about that? Because some people may never have experienced a miscarriage. Some people may never relate to that, you know, they've done having their children or whatever, but we will more than likely encounter somebody along the way. From your experiences, what would you say? Because I know that I bought Danny a little music box or whatever, and even that I was like, oh, do I give it or not? Like, you know, it's gonna like break down, you know. But I felt,
I know, you're just
like on the brink of depression because of my music box. But like I felt like she would want to, but I think I remember feeling that inner turmoil, like, is this appropriate? Like, you know, and even when I was giving it to her, it's like, oh God, like please don't be the tipping point, you know.
Do you know what? I mean, I think emotionally it would kind of make you cry, but I wish someone had actually done that for me.
Yeah.
I think we were really, I think it's really hard to navigate because I think obviously I'd never experienced it before and I didn't really know anybody that had. So, you know, you're kind of going through it, and I knew in all my kind of, it just feels very clouded, I think, when you're going through it. It just feels like you're in this kind of, you're walking through this like clouded space and you're trying to navigate. So you don't really know what you want, to be honest. You don't know what you want and what you don't want. I think, you're full of hormones. I think I would say that in that space you want people to care. I think you want people to care because I think they're not saying anything and people do say some of the things that people said to me was, honestly, I can't even repeat it because it's shocking. But I think that...
Can you give us some examples so you know what not to say? Because clearly whoever...
Seriously, I know.
You can power
I don't want to shame no one. I think it's...
No, but what I'm saying is you can paraphrase it. You don't have to say word for word, but I think that it's good for us. This is what the show's about. You know, having these conversations. What is inappropriate?
I'll say a couple of the worst ones.
Okay.
So this was in church.
This
is you church folks, just so you know.
Take note.
So an older lady, she came up and said, you know, next time you get pregnant, make sure that you don't have rough sex because that's could be the reason why you miscarry.
I feel like in that Oprah Winfrey moment.
Yeah, this is the Oprah Winfrey moment where she went,
what?
So obviously this is my first Sunday back.
Oops.
So I'm like, you're just,
wow.
It was just,
Wow.
And then the other one was, somebody came and said, it's fine if you don't get pregnant again, you can get Sarah carry.
Me?
So in that, you
That's
feel,
another, what?
So in that, you
I would do, no, by the way, I would do that if you need to be
but
too,
also,
well done, sister. I caught that one.
No, but I think in that you feel so inadequate because you already feel a guilt because you haven't been able to almost fulfill your womanly duty of carrying a baby. You feel like you've disappointed people. You feel like you've let people down because it feels like a failure on yourself. So I think that it's just those are not the right things to say. You can share. You can let somebody know that you care by just affirming. Send a card. Send a note. Send a text message. Send flowers. And people did do that. You know, we had so much love and support. But those insensitive comments can almost like cancel everything out. And I think that that's what people need to be really aware of. If you don't have anything positive to say or you just don't know what to say, it's better to not say anything because I think in that moment that person is so vulnerable and you're literally like, you feel like you're fragile, like you could break into a million pieces.
Did you find that you kind of hid behind your husband quite a bit?
Yeah, I did.
Like
I remember that first Sunday and it was
you just protect
you feel so fragile, you feel so delicate, and I think that it takes a minute to feel like you're strong again. It takes a minute because you're still trying to figure out, and you're in church, you're still trying to smile and be like, okay, I'm not like completely crumbling here.
And
I have faith.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's really difficult.
Yeah, it is.
I think church can be a difficult place to walk through and recover. I mean, I don't encourage anyone to hide out when they're going through stuff, but it can be because of that community and, you know, people feel like they're connected to you and they mean well. They mean well.
Okay, well, I just think but I think first of all, I don't think there's ever an occasion to talk about rough sex with anyone.
No.
Like, just as a rule, just a general rule.
I actually had 2 people say that to me.
Wow.
Okay, well that's obviously a thing. So
There's
let's just put it out
people as well.
there. That's not the reason
But
why
I want,
people
but then
miscarry.
I was going to say though, but I do wonder whether that's coming from a place. I
Yeah.
wonder where that
Their
knowledge
place.
is coming from.
And I
Yeah.
think that this
You
is so
know.
important why we're having this conversation. Let's break the myths. Like, you know, first of all, when you have a miscarriage, it's not punishment. It's not that you've done something terribly wrong. It's not that you're not woman enough and whatever. And even, to be honest, even if you are not able to ever fall pregnant and you're not able to carry by yourself, there is also no shame in, some people have chosen the surrogacy route. Some people have chosen an adoption route. Some people have chosen, there's lots of different avenues to become a mother, and I think that it's not our place to weigh in on that. I think that, you know, let's find a way as women to be supportive. If we're not sure what to say or what to do, just send some flowers. If you don't know what to say, if you don't know what to do a nice card. If you don't know what to write, just write the name of the person and your name. You know,
Praying for you.
Pray for you, or, you know, here for
Or even
you.
just praying. You
Yeah.
know, sometimes I think it's like, you know, one of the biggest things I think sometimes we underestimate, you know, and whether it's praying or if you know, if you're watching it and you're not of the faith at this stage, you know, even the facts of just even the thoughts that you have towards the person, you know, and that's what you're communicating in that card, but actually physically praying for that person to have strength to endure. You know, just if you just commit it, you know what, for 30 days I'm just going to pray for this person every day. That is phenomenal, because that's what you need, that unspoken. You know, you need that bit of strength to cope. So, you know, it's not going to cost you anybody, and everybody can do it, male or female.
So let's fast forward. So now, I mean, you've had multiple pregnancies. When's the first time that a pregnancy goes the full term?
So the following after losing Joshua, I think, you have to bear with me because sometimes I get a bit jumbled, but it was Naomi Grace. That little girl made it all the way through to 40+3.
If you've met her, you know why.
God fully cooked that one.
She's a firecracker.
Now, because we're running out of time, so now after this, you're probably feeling like redeemed, or
you feel
what
like
are
you're
you
in the
feeling?
safety zone. You
So
feel like
you're feeling like you're in the safe zone.
You're already in the safe
You're
zone.
back. You're
I'm like,
whole.
listen, you know
God's
what?
done this.
Come on, I'm like, listen, you know, every time, you know, see double lines, we're good to go. I'm like, God's got this. And then the next one came at 26 weeks, so we had to encounter prematurity, and obviously just conscious of time, just to kind of move forward with that. Then we had the next pregnancy, which had a longer period of time in terms of gestation, and babies were born at 23 weeks, where, as we discussed, that's baby Jaira and his brother, that was Rayma, and unfortunately Rayma didn't make it.
They were twins.
They were twins, yeah. So Rayma didn't make it. Jaira did, but his journey was significantly challenging, as opposed to Ariella's journey, which was a lot easier. She just had to grow in an incubator, get fed. I was able to express, we're all good to go in terms of that prematurity. But Jaira was just full of operations and
battle.
lots of
Let's just go back to, because I remember myself and Sarah came to see you in the hospital, and I remember you had just had them.
Literally
just had them. I think we might have been maybe the first visitors, I can't remember. And obviously when we walked into the room, you were just obviously rightfully completely broken, completely beside yourself, because at that point Rayma had passed away. And
well, they
Jaira
refused to fight for him.
So when Rayma was born, what they stated was that his heart rate was not as strong as Jaira's, because he had a slightly more significant infection, and so he wouldn't pick up. So what they did is they gave him a certain amount of life support. Alan was with Rayma whilst I was getting sorted out, and Alan tried to. Alan is my husband. Sorry, my wonderful husband. He's amazing. I speak it, and Alan was really trying to contend with the consultants that were making the decision whether or not they were going to continue life support for the baby, and they made the decision that they were going to stop. in terms of any kind of decisions that are made within hospitals, just to kind of really quickly touch on that, sometimes they can be very clinical, and I just advise, just thinking and being conscious of time, just you know, it's really important that a lot of women, if you are found yourself in that situation, to have people to advocate on your behalf. You know, Alan knew my wishes, so he knew what our position was as a family, so he knew to fight for that child, and thankfully we did. You know, we can always look back on that and say that, you know what, that baby in heaven, we fought for you, you know.
But just to stop there for it, just to digress a little bit, obviously for people that you had experience, so you knew how to fight, you knew what your rights were, you knew what the procedures were, what the stages were, how to fight for Jaira. Obviously for those that is kind of going into this maybe for the first time, where, like, I know when we had the miscarriage, you're kind of put in this room and you're like given some leaflets, and you know, it's so cold, like you said, and it's so clinical. Obviously you've never experienced this before, so for somebody that obviously was experiencing this for the first time, obviously you're kind of wrapped up in emotions, I would imagine, and you're not necessarily thinking, okay, let me, you know, put on my war gear and fight for this child.
Well, you've got two, really, you're fighting for, because this is twins, this pregnancy, this is your first pregnancy where it's twins. And I think you said something really powerful when we spoke earlier off camera. You said that most women don't actually learn their rights.
Absolutely.
And rightfully so. You just think, oh, I'll get pregnant, I'll go all the way through, etc. And most women don't actually learn their rights, because no one wants to kind of ever register the possibility of, if I'm ever in a situation.
And I think in that situation, experience is the teacher, because it's only when you kind of go through it that you're like, okay, I need to actually understand what I am not entitled to fight for.
And that's why I think that, like, literally, like, this is if you've not experienced it, or you're kind of thinking, okay, well, that next question comes up, well, how do I get that experience? How do I learn all of those things? This is what this program is here to provide. It's really here to provide that voice to say, actually, you've got to actually, you know, recognize that you are worthy, like we said before, the fact that you do have a voice. Make sure you've got the right support around you, make sure that people know what your wishes are, and so you can, you know, you can feed into that.
One of your wishes was obviously for them to fight for Rayma, but they didn't. They chose to switch off his life support. Is there a way that you could have pushed for that?
So what they were saying was that because the heart rate wasn't picking up, so after a while, clinically, if his heart rate's not picking up, really he's clinically dying or dead. So to them, he would have needed to have shown signs that heart rate was moving. Whereas with Jaira had more of a consistent and a strong heart rate. So they were like, right, okay, even though they didn't even really want to fight for Jaira, that was even another thing, because he was 23 weeks. So they were even like, you know what, we don't even want, you know, it's just too complicated, you know.
What is the point at which they say that they will fight? Is it 26 weeks?
So I understand that a lot of it is dependent upon weight. So correct me, I'm not 100% on the details, but I believe a lot of it is on weight. So if you've got a baby even at 22 plus 5 plus 6, they can actually still, depending on the weight, some neonatal departments will take that baby, but it is dependent upon the location that you're in, it's dependent upon the area you live in, how quickly they can transfer baby to what they call is level 1 hospitals. You know, so things like that as well, like just like little bits of information, like knowing where your level 1 hospitals are, knowing where your level 2 hospitals are, knowing literally, okay, well, what is my route to the hospital, knowing, you know, just little things like that you don't want to be doing it in fear, you know, you don't go and pack your bag and be like, right, 25, 26 weeks, like I'm ready to go, you know?
But then I think that you do need to also not presume, because I had a very normal, perfectly healthy pregnancy with Maya, and then for those of you that don't know my story, Kayla was born at 35 weeks, 34, 6 weeks premature, 34 weeks, right? So she was 6 weeks premature, completely different experience, and we were saying this earlier, where she was whisked away from me, taken out of a room, incredibly scary. You don't get to sleep with the baby. If you do, you're curled up on a chair somewhere. You know, she doesn't really belong to you, because there's doctors coming in and doing whatever they feel like doing, really. And
did you find that they consulted with you what they were doing? Did they give you progress, or they just did their
Not
thing?
the initial. I think I don't know for your experience, Sarah, but with my one, not initially. Literally, it's well, the first one I didn't really have a clue at all. Second one, I was a bit more like, hold on a minute, I'm watching you.
Yeah.
But it's about the fact that it's primarily is to get the baby stable.
Yes.
So they
And
don't tell you nothing.
Well, they don't, because their job in their mind is to get this baby to live, and so you're really secondary to that. The mum doesn't really have. I remember even asking for food, because you literally get pushed to the side, and it's the focus is on saving this baby's life. But what I was going to say in that is that because I didn't expect anything else. I'd had a really healthy pregnancy, normal pregnancy. We didn't have anything. Literally, we had no bags packed. The nursery had ordered everything, but I'd ordered it to come like 4 weeks or 3 weeks prior to her getting here. So literally, we had nothing. So for Ezra, I made sure I had everything, and I think that that's something that we don't talk about as women as well. Preparing for, not every pregnancy is the same. You can have a completely normal pregnancy for one. Kayla was 14 months later. So you can't even say I waited, years and years or whatever. Like 14 months later, completely different pregnancy. So I think what you would say is preparation is key as well. Prepare yourself with knowledge.
And prepare yourself mentally. I think you don't prepare yourself to fail or to lose a baby. You prepare yourself to be strong and to fight.
Absolutely.
You're not looking at it as in the sense of, oh, I'm thinking about it and I'm afraid and I'm, oh my gosh. No, actually prepare yourself spiritually if you're of the faith.
But not in fear. Don't go if you're not had a baby or you're pregnant, you start panicking and you start being in fear. This isn't about being in fear. It's just about being in faith, right? And with knowledge.
But I think that's something though that you have to really be conscious to do. I know after we miscarried that there is this kind of you're just filled with fear. Because you're thinking about the next one that you're so fearful. And that's really something that you have to battle within your mind. And you really have to be conscious to make sure that doesn't become a dominant factor.
I was going to say as well, just to kind of add to that, was about strongholds, because that was one of my biggest things. Because when you go, when you go into the doctor's office and then you've got to go and give them your history, and they love that, and you've got to go and sit, and then they ask you. So, for instance, you're sitting there, you've just found out you're pregnant, you're really happy, you walk in, and they say, "What's your history?" And it's like, why do you not have like a system that actually tells you what my history is before I get in there, and you've got to reel it out again? And what I observed for myself was that. And noticed was that it was forming a stronghold in me, and I had to tackle the stronghold. I actually, when it says that we've got to take down that stronghold, so I would just encourage anybody, when you embark on your pregnancy or in trying for a baby, trying to conceive or anything like that, you cannot be in fear. I can't express it. If you remain in fear, what you're saying is you're actually saying, I don't believe that this baby can live. And you have to fight. You have to fight against that fear, And actually, to be fair, how do you know? That's the thing. How do you actually know that that baby's not gonna go full term?
I just want to, because we're gonna be closing soon. I just want to just quickly go to that hospital room. You've got one baby that you've literally just lost, but you can't really mourn because you've gone straight into fighting for another one. I remember Danny started saying we walked into that hospital room and you were completely broken. Take us to that moment. What are you thinking? What are you feeling? How do you muster up the strength to now go into fight mode when you also, as a mother, because you're a mother, you have mothered 11 children. Whether you got to hold all of them or not, you are a mother of 11 children, and by the grace of God, you will get to meet all of those children one day. So you've now just lost a child. You've seen this child. He was on your chest, I remember, right? So you've just lost a baby. And everything in you probably wants to just camp in that. But you're also very aware that another baby is fighting for their life. What does that look like?
So in my experience, I can only say it was support. Literally, this is why it's good to have a good team around you. It was support. It was having people speaking into my ears what I needed to do and actually focus. it was preparation. Sometimes we don't realise when we're going through things, actually you're being prepared in many ways to learn where to glean that strength. And you know, and like the ladies that are sitting here, they're all part of that story, you know, in terms of, you know, that first initial time, as well as my mum and my sister, because I didn't have it at that time. At that time, I think, and nobody out there should, you know, if you're even crying and weeping now because you think to yourself, oh gosh, you know, I didn't fight, or I didn't do this, or I didn't do that, it's understandable. And you are seen and you are heard and you are loved in that. And just know that, like, it's not because, you know, if I didn't have somebody coming in and saying to me, putting me into a wheelchair that we couldn't steer,
Go for a walk.
and telling me I needed to go downstairs and see my son, which I just couldn't.
But do you know why we done that? Because I knew you needed to see what you were fighting for. I could see you getting ready to detach, and I knew if you didn't fight, this baby wouldn't live. And he needed that mama bear strength. And thank God you did. Thank God you did.
I remember walking into that room, we had to leave all our belongings outside. And we had to take all our outerwear off. And I remember he was literally just skin and bone. I mean, he literally, there's nothing to him. He's obviously full of tubes. He was just so dizzy, like tiny. So tiny.
And fighting.
He fought.
He was just fighting. And I just remember just looking at him and I thought, how dare you sit there in your grief? How dare you actually, you know, have the luxury to think that, you know what, I can detach, I can leave him. And this baby who, what, less than 6 months, maybe just over 6 months of life is fighting. You know, and it literally was just a fact of just going down and, you know, along the way, once again, just having strong women. You know, for me, I think in my journey, God sent, I don't even want to get upset, but, you know, but God sent people into my journey to help me to have Jaira. There's no way that baby would be here without, and I've always said it, without the prayer of the saints, without the support, you know. And that's why I say you can't underestimate prayer, because prayer will raise up people. There was occasions in the hospital where we had the head consultant who wouldn't take no for an answer concerning this baby. She came up to my room and she said to me, look, you know what, I understand about all of this sadness thing, but you need to fight. I want to see you by his bed cot every day, and so on and so forth, you know. And then also further to that, then we had, you know, when we, gosh, you know, all the times when we had the life support, remember those phone calls, you know, just calling, Pastor Erica would just call just to check in, and I'd be like, oh my gosh, Jaira's like, literally, he's passing away, like, you know, and having prayer, the saints praying, a church praying, you know, it's, you know, and I say all of that to say that, you know, I believe, I'm so grateful, and I see that, you know, I see Jaira as a mark of, actually, that's what it looks like when you pray and when you fight, you know. And I just think he's part of everybody's journey, you know. He's like that little, you know, little trinket of hope, you know.
And I think that's a really powerful way to kind of close off and to end, because I know that there's many women watching that are still waiting for they call it the rainbow baby. You've lost 8. You've said goodbye to 8 children, and I can't even begin to fathom what that feels like or looks like. But you also have 3 amazing, beautiful children. So I guess what I would say to everybody watching today is, don't give up. Don't give up hope. Don't close the book and close the chapter. Turn the page. The story continues. And if you will just keep your eyes on the prize and not give up, surround yourself with the right support network.
And that's really important. Community. I think for women, we need community. Community really helps you transition through all the many things that women go through. Never isolate yourself or be, you know, a loner. Get amongst people that can support you, pray for you, love you through the ups and the downs.
Last thoughts then.
I would just say no fear. and to say no fear. I'm very excited. I've got a lot of you know, people that I'm holding on to God for, because I'm like, God, no. We need to see this. We need to see that manifestation. So yeah.
I think last thoughts. I think that it's okay to grieve. I think that that's the first thing. I think it's okay to grieve. What I would say is don't grieve on your own. You know, it's much better if you have a support system, because sometimes you just need to actually articulate the thoughts and articulate the frustrations and articulate the pain. And I think that's really important that we speak out when we're in pain, because we need to have a way of dealing with it, and we need to have a way of processing it. I think when you say it out loud, it kind of takes away the sting. And I think that that's really important, that we speak out when we are in pain, even if it's just like I would say to my husband, I'm just not having a good day today, and that he just, without having to say or necessarily do anything, you know that okay, in that moment, just to be sensitive, because it could be that they just have an expectation of what you should be doing that day, but they can just then be a lot more sensitive to the fact that okay, I'm just not okay today. So I think that grief, there's a natural process to grieving, and there's a natural process to loss. Do not camp there, because there is a future, and we will have that hope of the future to come.
And I think don't be scared to go and get counsel. You named some amazing organisations.
So you've got like SANS, you've got Bliss as well, and you know, in terms of, you know, even get in contact with even via Stacey as well.
Stacey Couture.
There's lots of independent counsellors. You know, check them out, get a consultation, make that connection with them, and then you can be able to process stronger. And
there's nothing wrong with counselling. It's healthy and it's good. And I know for you, one of the things that really helped you was actually naming your children, because when you miscarried, there wasn't all of these things available.
No, and there's that conception that that baby's gone and it never became a person, but that's not the truth. God actually took me to heaven, showed me those two boys that I'd lost, and they weren't babies, they're actually grown, and that was where my grieving stopped, having that experience. So recognize that that baby that you've lost, whether through abortion, through miscarriage, is very much alive. They're just living in another place.
I know you said goodbye as well.
We
you released balloons with his name on it.
But it's closure. I think
closure.
I think everyone with grief and with loss, I think closure is required. So whether it's you've lost somebody in this pandemic, allow yourself to have that closure, even if you didn't necessarily get to say goodbye because of distance, because you weren't allowed to visit them. I think seek some sort of closure, because I think that that's where a lot of people struggle, because they didn't necessarily get to say goodbye, or that it doesn't feel final.
And allow God into that space. And just as we're closing, we just want to encourage you guys to be kind. We keep saying this, but this season of Girl Talk should have shown you.
Process what you say before you say it.
This season of Girl Talk should have shown you that everybody has a story, and before you go and say something to somebody or put something on someone, recognize that they have a story. They may not have shared that story with you, but everybody has a story. So let's be kind and ask the question, as Meghan Markle said, are you okay? We will see you next week for a little bit of a lighter subject.
I know we've had a few weeks of heavy ones,
but really, really important as well. So
make sure to invite somebody on. Tell somebody about the program, because I'm sure they'll be blessed too.
God bless you.
See you next week. Session of Girl Talk.